Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I am a messenger with United Network News. If you haven't heard of us before, well, we are the official news channel for CARE. CARE stands for the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth. And we discuss the real news, what's really happening in this world, which is totally different than what mainstream and alternative media are telling everybody. It's just lies, 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 gumdrops and rainbows. Nothing to see here, folks. Meanwhile, there's a lot going on, not just here, like in the U.S., where I'm based, countries all over the world, governments all over the world are in the process of literally collapsing, federal governments. We talk about that a lot. We'll talk about that a little bit more in today's episode. So that's an idea of the real news. That's what's really happening in our world, guys. And we have a newscast that's released through our online distribution platform, which is unitednetwork.tv. It comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The newscast does. Of course, if you want more information on that, check out the website. It is a membership-based platform, which is one of the reasons that I really wanted to start this podcast, because I know not everyone can afford a membership. It's very inexpensive, by the way, but sometimes, money's tough. Totally get that. And so we created this podcast so we could talk about some of the stories that we discuss on the newscast, give you guys an idea of what we do. Hey, we're here. And let people know what we're up to and how people can get involved too, because we are changing the face of news. And I know that sounds like a big, lofty goal. It is, and at the same time, it's not, because the news is broken. I think most people would agree with that statement. The whole fake news thing, that used to be a joke when Trump first started talking about that. Everyone used to kind of laugh. But I think we all now know that it's real. Media is broken, You're probably going to find a lot more real information on any of these podcasts that you're listening to than anything that is filtered through mainstream or even alternative media. Because the truth is, all of that information, at least from the real popular people that are putting it out, it's all coming from the same source. It's all CIA run. Okay, that's not a conspiracy theory. That is conspiracy truth. And we don't get our information from those sources. In fact, we have access to the highest security clearance on the planet, not just in the U.S., with the U.S. government, on the planet. And it comes from a system called the Alpha system, which you're going to hear a little bit more about today. Honestly, some of the content that we talk about is going to be surprising. If you happen to just find our podcast because you were looking for Rachel Maddow or, I don't know, Laura Ingraham or something like that, forget it. But stick with us, okay? There's going to be some shockers, I'm sure. The world is not set up and run the way you think it is, okay? We've all been lied to about countless things. The good news is, though, the lies are going away because that's part of the darkness. And our entire planet and all of humanity with it, we are transitioning into the light. You know the saying, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen? Well, if you can't take the light, get off the planet. Go back to source. Go back to God, whatever it is. Exit stage left, right? Because we are moving on. We are bringing in the light. We are holding the light. So many of us have been doing this for so many years on this planet. Some of us are just waking up to the fact that that's why we're here. That's like the big question everyone has, right? Why am I here? What is life all about? Well, a lot of you are figuring out what it's all about right now. And our news is geared towards helping you figure this out and telling you what's really going on so you can figure out what your role is. Because everybody listening to this podcast right now has a role. You did not find this show by accident. You are important, and your role here is important. Just got to figure out what it is. So after listening to our content, I encourage you guys to do your own research. That's how we got into this problem in the first place. People just believed whatever was broadcast on whatever channel or don't do that. Please do your own research. Stop believing people just because, they're behind a podium. Who cares? Who cares what your title is? Doesn't matter anymore. Think critically and ask questions. Here's the rundown for Wednesday, September 27th, 2023. So our newscast always starts off with our lovely field messenger reports. This is what UNN is all about. We give you the truth, and the way that we report locally on the truth is through you guys. We believe you are the news, not necessarily that you create the news, but you know what's happening in your communities, and we think that makes you an expert, not some reporter that flies in on some fancy jet and, puts their little story together and then flies back to Manhattan. No, you, because you care. And so we think those are the best people to tell the stories. And we call those people our field messengers. Now, anyone can become a field messenger. If you want more information on that, you can go to unitednetwork.news. There's a tab at the top that talks about becoming a field messenger. And in all of our newscasts, those are the reports that we start with because you guys are amazing at what you do. Call it citizen journalism, whatever you want to call it. It's beautiful. And so the two stories that we kick off today's newscast with, the first one is from Western Uganda. Our Nightway Jacqueline is our field messenger on this, and it's a beautiful story. Our Nightway Jacqueline has submitted a few reports for us, and it's amazing what people can do. Humanity, we're such creative beings, and it really doesn't matter where you live. We all have this within us, right? And we've got this amazing survival mentality. I know we don't like to live like that, but humans are extremely resilient. And when you learn more about our history, and you find out, oh, wow, how resilient we actually are. But what I love about this story is that our Nightway goes through and talks about this industry that they have created, this local industry. And she's done reports before about like banana trees and how they grow and things like that. And this takes it one step further and shows a product that they make from the bananas. I think she calls it something else, but she also calls it bananas. So I'm going to go with bananas. And it's a banana farm, essentially. And it's become a successful business. And it's incredible because you see, kind of the topography, the landscape in Western Uganda. And then you see these different, there's like, I don't know if it's a concrete building, but there's like an actual structure, where they're processing and doing some stuff. She takes us through the entire step from cutting the bananas up and packaging, the whole thing. And it's really amazing. And I love the story. And I love to know how small villages can come together and do this kind of stuff. Hey guys, you don't have to buy all your stuff from Nestle and all the other crazy companies out there, and who knows what they're putting in your food. This is a very popular snack, by the way, in Western Uganda, and, they're making it happen. It's gorgeous. And when I was watching this story, I watched it a couple times. When I was watching it, I kept thinking, oh my gosh, this is a glimpse of what restoration is going to look like for the people, because you're going to see more, I was going to say factory, but it's not like a bad kind of factory feel, but smaller factories, smaller manufacturing and things like that happening in places to keep it local. Why are we shipping stuff all over the world? Well, I know why. It's all about control. It's all about modifying the stuff before it gets there and making money off those goods in transit. That's the whole scheme there. But we should be doing this stuff locally. And so, anyways, kind of got me excited about restoration. The second field messenger report is about a way of muscle testing. Have you guys heard of muscle testing before? This comes from Emma in Spain, by the way. Now, I learned about muscle testing, I would say about a year or so ago. I actually took a health and wellness class about this, and this is the ability for you to be able to tell through what your muscles do, essentially in your body, whether something is good for you or not. Believe it or not, your body will actually tell you. You just have to pick up, on the signs. Your body actually physically changes a little bit, whether it's a yes or a no. Should I do this today? Should I do that today? Should I take this? Now, I don't know. For me, the ways to muscle test, I felt like it could be manipulated. And I couldn't quite get it out of my head that I wasn't manipulating the results. And I was really actually listening to what my body had to say. I just couldn't quite overcome that hurdle. With today's story, though, Emma introduces us to a tool. It's called a biosensor machine. No, probably not machine. Biosensor. I think she just says biosensor. And it kind of looks like a wand. And there's metal involved. And she demonstrates how this works. And it kind of works the same way muscle testing works, except I don't feel like you could really mess with these results. You really can't do much to mess this up based on what I saw in this video. So, for example, she was holding up something that wouldn't be good for her to eat. Okay, so she has some dietary restrictions. And she would hold something up and then she would ask a question. And it would either go up and down or side to side, depending on what the answer was. So up and down was yes, side by side or side to side was no. And that's how she knew if something was good for her or not. Now, she already knew because the packaging, she can't have gluten, basically. So any crackers that had gluten in it, she would ask the system, is this good for me? And it would, it looks like a wand, so I'm just going to call it a wand. The wand would say no. And then she would hold up a package of something that didn't have gluten in it, something similar, but it didn't have gluten, and would say, is this good for me? And it would go up and down and say yes. So she had a few different examples of this. And I was just fascinated when I first saw this because, again, I have tried doing muscle testing in the past, and I just didn't feel quite comfortable with it. And I probably just needed to practice more, but I don't know. I had to get out of my head, and I couldn't get out of my head. This, I felt, was something that I'm like, hey, I actually did some searching online after I watched the story to see if I could purchase it. By the way, it's like over $100. So if you're interested, there are places online where you can buy these, but they're a tad bit expensive. Again, it's called a biotensor, Tensor. But there's all these fascinating things about our bodies that we're just now finding out. I mean, the ability to, whether you're muscle testing or you've got a device like this that you're able to use to know if you should or shouldn't do something because your body is reacting to it. You are literally communicating with your body. How fantastic is that on a conscious level? So it was incredible. Loved it. If you want to see these stories, by the way, we do offer our Field Messenger reports. They are available for free. I'm going to tell you at the end of today's episode how you can watch those for free. In our world news stories, we have 4 stories that I want to tell you about. The first, and this was a late breaking story we actually added to the news overnight. And thank you, by the way, for one of our field messengers for giving us some of the video for this. But in Victoria, Australia, their premier resigned. And it was abrupt. Now, we have said in the past, we are not covering government stories. The reason we're talking about this is obviously this is really a big win for the people. I could care less about the government, although you are going to see more and more of this happening because federal governments are crumbling to the ground. And this actually has to happen. So don't have fear because there's a plan, okay? But you're going to see this happen more and more. And the former now premier for Victoria, Australia, his name is Daniel Andrews. And I guarantee if you're from Australia, you know that name because he's not someone that a lot of people like. Let's just put it that way. He resigned suddenly. And it just so happens that Victoria was the most heavily locked down state in the world during COVID. They were locked down 23 hours per day. They had 1 hour of exercise. Police were roaming the streets. And it got worse than that, okay? Here in the U.S., we heard that all of Australia was like this. That's not the case. It was really Victoria, Australia that had this problem. And this premier was the problem. Now, after I said that, I want to clarify something because Premiers, prime ministers, presidents, they do not act on their own accord. There's always someone above them telling them what to do. They are puppets. But in the eye of the public, this is the guy making decisions for Victoria, Australia. So he's not liked very much, right? And this was a very welcome sigh of relief for so many people because he did so much crap to them over the last few years. You know, interesting sidebar here. The news team and I, we were talking about how to tell this story, and we decided to tell it through the story or, through the eyes of the people, because that's what we're doing with all of the news now. We literally do not care what governments do unless they're doing something to harm or to benefit the people, and then we can report on it. And we talked about, should we even mention who the new premier is? Because they have said the name of the woman. And we decided no, because it really doesn't matter. Again, they're all puppets. Doesn't really matter the name of the person, and all governments are crumbling. So welcome to your new job, so-and-so. You'll be here approximately maybe until the end of the week. I mean, that's what's happening right now. We literally had this conversation, the news team, and we decided not to mention the new person because it doesn't matter. These people really don't matter. All right, moving on. We had a few different stories in the news today about airport issues. So when you see kind of clusters like this, you have to wonder what's going on. These are questions that we should be asking as they come up in the headlines. So Gatwick Airport in London is having, at least what they're reporting, they are having a shortage in air traffic control staff. And what it's doing in that airport is, you don't have people controlling the skies. You can't have as many flights take off. So they are setting a cap of 800 flights per day, which means a lot of flights are being canceled. So we have that going on. Then we had an update from Scandinavian airline. It's called SAS. I'm not sure what it stands for. But they are currently under U.S. bankruptcy protection, and they are evaluating final bids. So again, struggling overall as a company, trying to get more funding, all right? And then the third airline was Bamboo Airlines in Vietnam. Now, they are reporting, well, someone's, I guess maybe they're not putting out this information, but it is being reported that they have 10% of their pilots are what they're calling foreign pilots, so probably not from Vietnam, okay? Those people are not getting paid what they're supposed to be getting paid. They're calling it late salary payments, and it was very unclear as to when they actually pay them, what they're supposed to be paying them. It's some ridiculous amount, like when they get their paycheck, it's 30% of what their paycheck is supposed to be. Are you seeing a pattern here? Okay, we are seeing, shortage of air traffic control staff. There was no explanation as to why. Maybe they're not getting paid too. Who knows? Maybe they're out, for some other reason or another issue that they have with the airline. But then we've got these bankruptcies going on and we've got these late payments. Now, little known fact, governments usually have contracts with airlines, especially the bigger airlines in their country. They'll develop contracts with them and they'll pay them some ridiculous amount of money, and then their people can fly whenever they want to fly. I'm not sure exactly how they work that out. They do something similar with the media, which I think I've talked about on this podcast before. They buy airtime in advance so they can cut in anytime they want. So it's really interesting. We know governments are going down and we're starting to see a lot of issues in airports. So keep an eye out for more stories like that. Next story is about our friend, Amazon. How many people shop at Amazon? Honestly, I just made a purchase the other day. So it is something that is built into our society. It is convenient. But the Federal Trade Commission here in the U.S. is going after them right now for exploiting monopoly power. Now, I'm going to throw out a percentage here, and it's mind-boggling, I think. The percentage is, it says Amazon controls 40% of the e-commerce market. as a whole. 40%. That's incredible. So what the Federal Trade Commission is saying is that Amazon's business practices, which if you guys know Amazon, right, they've got their own lineup of whatever the product is. I was debating on if I should tell this story or not. Several years ago, my husband and I, we bought wholesale from a company that we really, really liked. We bought wholesale baby blankets because when our kids were born in the hospitals, we really loved this certain kind of baby blanket and we couldn't find it outside of the hospital. So we had this ingenious idea of wanting to sell these same baby blankets on Amazon and maybe we can make a profit. At the very least, we're going to help some other parents, whatever. So I have some personal experience with Amazon because we were kind of involved for a little bit. Now, let me tell you what happened. We started to make a little bit of money, a little bit. I mean, this is really more just about the experience in general because it's a lot to package up blankets and, the labels have to be exact and, just figuring out how to print out the labels is its own issue, okay? But the moment we started making some money, other people started coming in and basically their profit margins were much smaller than ours because they could buy a lot more. They had a lot more capital and liquidity to work with than we did, just as like a married couple, just kind of doing this on the side. So I have some experience with how this happens. You get these kind of grandiose ideas of wanting to be able to do your own thing. And then someone, maybe Amazon, comes in and they sell the exact same profit or product. And, they cut the profits because they don't need to sell as much because, they either got it at a cheaper price or there's a lot more people buying the product so they can afford to do that. And so what the Federal Trade Commission is saying that is not cool anymore. You promote too much of your own stuff. You have these really high seller fees. It's detrimental to the customer experience as well as competition in general. And then Amazon comes back and says, well, we don't agree with what you're saying. And if you make us make these kind of changes, which they lay out, then it's going to result in a decrease of product selection, which, Amazon is known for its product selection. May not be good products, but it's still product selection. Costs are going to go up. We're going to have slower deliveries, yada, yada, yada. Everything that Amazon is known for doing well apparently is going to crumble because of these changes that the Federal Trade Commission wants them to make. My question in all of this is, why is this just coming up now? How long has Amazon been out there? We've known, the baby blanket thing with my husband and I 5-6 years ago is when we did that, I'm guessing. This is not new news. Amazon has been doing this for a long time. So what's leading to this is the Federal Trade Commission being pressured, our smaller businesses coming out and saying, listen, you're taking our money with taxes. You're taking our money with, what I'm spending at the grocery store. What's going on here? Seems like there's a little bit of pressure. Or maybe it's the government itself, right? Federal Trade Commission, part of the government. Maybe there's some kickbacks for this, Who knows? We don't really know the exact reason why. But you have to wonder, why now? Why is this coming out now? And our final story is kind of an interesting one. Honestly, this comes close to home for me. It's about Spotify. Everybody knows Spotify and something they're calling podcaster voices. So what you may or may not know is I have been a podcaster for a long time. And I actually coach people on how to podcast. And so any stories that have to do with podcasting, I'm very much interested in. This particular story is about Spotify partnering with OpenAI, and they're going to introduce this tool to help translate podcasts into different languages. Now, on the surface, that sounds pretty awesome, right? Because one thing that I've learned, especially in working with UNN, is, wow, there's really a really big language barrier out there. I speak English. I speak a little bit of Spanish, but not a lot. And so when I want to communicate, thank goodness a lot of people speak English. But there's so many different languages out there. And a lot of times we want to do news stories like on different places, but it's not available in English. And then someone has to translate something. So I'm always thinking about that. I'm thinking about languages, and in my head, I'm like, can't we all just be telepathic? Because that would just simplify pretty much the whole world. So on the surface, this sounds like a really good thing. But here's what happens. They, again, are using AI, so it's not a real person, to do this translation. And they claim that the voice, the new voice, the translated voice, sounds like the original person. It's the cadence of the original person, and it kind of sounds like the original person. We ran a sample of this on the news. I'm a little bit jaded when it comes to all of this in general, so I'm probably not the best person to give an opinion on whether or not it actually sounds like the original person. But, Spotify is all happy about this. They think that's going to lead to more people listening to podcasts. It's going to be more convenient, open things up to a global audience. Really, translated means we're trying to make more money. All right, so if more people listen to Dax Shepard and his podcast that's already generating how many dollars, because I think isn't he exclusive on Spotify, or Joe Rogan or whatever, if we can translate it into all these other languages, we're going to make more money. So that's the bottom line, okay? It's always money or power or maybe fame. But when I see this story, what I see is a little bit of conditioning going on, or at least a little bit of testing to see how people react to inorganic voices. And how many people can they actually trick into thinking that that voice actually comes from that person, which it doesn't. It is fake. It is AI. So, sometimes they put this stuff out there just to do their own little testing, see how far they can take it, see how quote unquote stupid humanity is. And then, you combine that with the money thing and, there you go. There's your motive. Now, a little bit of a side story here. I am working on some promos right now for our field messengers. So we had our field messengers say some things, and I'm putting these promos together for the news and other places so we can promote our field messenger program. And one of the things that we decided we want to do from the beginning is we didn't want my voice to be on the promo because I'm on everything. I'm trying to get it so you guys don't have to listen to my voice all the time. And we wanted to include other voices. And it came up that there is is it Clipchamp? There is an app that I think it's an Adobe app, I believe. I could be wrong about that. Anyways, it is an app that is supposed to be really good at generating these AI voices. So you can upload a script and then it will not translate it, but it will, give you, there's like all these different dialects and, you just pick whichever one you want and it's supposed to spit out this voiceover for you. And I thought, oh, great, I'll check that out. I'll use that for the promos. You guys, I tried. I really tried. I spent a couple hours one night going through and seeing if any of these voiceovers, these, digital voices were good enough. And I basically had to stop. And I even asked a couple of people, I said, is it just me? Like, I feel like all of these just sound like robots. And I realized that what I was actually listening to was the frequency of their voice. Not even really listening to what was audibly being said, but I could sense on a frequency level that was not a real person. And in my mind, it was being disguised as a real person because we don't, at least that we're aware of, we don't hear a lot of AI voices all the time. So we kind of assume when we hear a promo, we hear a commercial, that it's a real person's voice. So this is kind of a fake, right? It's not really a real person. And the frequency for me was totally off. So we may start to see more of this happening. I think as we transition into a more organic and natural world, that this stuff will go away. If we have artificial voices, it's going to be very, very clear that this is an artificial voice. Like maybe when you go into your house speaks to you or something like that. Well, I know that houses don't really talk. So it's very obvious that this is an AI system. But I think that's part of the problem that we have now is we're disguising this. And we've done other stories on this too. There was a radio station that had a real person working there. Her name was Ashley. And they created AI Ashley. I think part of it was just a marketing campaign to do a lot of the intros for the songs and, contests and things like that. In fact, AI Ashley, we ran a soundbite. This was several months ago, but we ran this soundbite of her this AI interacting with a live caller. And it sounded pretty realistic. You have to be honest. Now, they are very forthcoming in saying this is AI Ashley. They're branding it as such. So I don't see as big of an issue with this, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little old-fashioned. Maybe I'm just, I have been podcasting for a long time, so I am very protective of podcasters out there. So we'll see where it goes. We'll see if people like this AI version of some of their favorite podcast celebrities. Now it's time for the World Situation Report. And this is with Kimberly Gogan from the Office of the Guardian. In our last podcast episode, the theme of the World Situation Report was governments are crashing. Here's what you need to do. And apparently the word got out. Because they know. At least the people that are currently at the top of this, very small pyramid that they've created, they know that they are going under. And the people that are at the top are doing everything possible to still hold their credibility while trying to destroy the planet at the same time. We talk a lot in today's World Situation Report about the Rothschilds because they had a really evil Knievel type plan, Dr. Evil. I guess that's probably the better reference. Evil Knievel just jumped over cars. Dr. Evil, okay? $1 million. So this is kind of like the evil Rothschilds. They have had a lot of power, at least on a human level, because no humans had, real power. There was always, a huge system above them, a huge hierarchy above them. But of the humans, they were pretty high up there, okay? And now that all their predecessors and people that were above them are gone and out of the picture, they want to rule the world. And they're trying to maintain control over what we call the umbrella military groups who carry out a lot of the operatives and, operations, things like that. They are operatives, right? And they had this brilliant plan, not so much, of trying to make all these different contracts with people. You guys know the United Nations were, meeting in New York. They tried to tell everybody that they had all of this money. They set up all of these closed loop payment systems. They're totally broke. They don't have any money. They are trying to retain their power as much as possible while they wait for different alignments. And the harvest moon apparently is happening this weekend, and that's their latest thing, right? It's happening on Friday. And so when the harvest moon comes, apparently they're going to get full access to the financial system, which is never, ever, ever going to happen. This is them living on a wing and a prayer. Meanwhile, though, they are promising big, big bucks and contracts to people that they absolutely cannot fulfill. So the bulk of today's World Situation Report is talking about this crazy concocted plan that they came up with and how it impacts Kim, because they were actually trying to throw her under the bus as well. So to explain all this, Kim has to go back and share a little history with us. So she sheds some light on how she got her position and how the deep state has used it against her in the past and basically tried to get her to work for them. She explains the alpha system a little bit more and why there hasn't been any new money entered into the system since 2007, because the Rothschilds are going around saying there's new money, we're going to give you these new contracts. There's no new money. No new money has been released, and Kim explains that. Take a listen.
How did the world survive without any new money since 2007, and let alone 2010, with a few little billion-dollar transfers here and there, which Omega kept for a short period of time? How did the world survive? About a year ago, in June, I believe I did it, or July. It was around the 4th of July last year. In a news broadcast, I showed you copies of old bills of exchange that I had signed off on, which then gave the Federal Reserve, ETAL, and the Rothschilds a 10-year extension. Now, they ran out of that money and that collateral long before 10 years had passed. However, I had to keep, when you make an agreement at this level, you have to keep it, even when you figure out it's been a mistake. By 2014, I had figured out it was a mistake about 2 years after I did it. But that didn't stop the Rothschilds from claiming they took all the money under their umbrella, so to speak, and all of the gold that was there, and then they delved it out like it was theirs. They created false closed loops in the banking system so they could actually see money, they could see collateral, they could see gold, until the day, which was the 4th of July in 2022, when I removed everything. I removed all the collateral. I told you, all of you, about it. You know, sometimes we make mistakes, but now it's over. Now, they weren't able to use the collateral, and they weren't able to issue new money from that collateral the whole time. So they only had that bucket of cash. Okay. And total, you know, it was probably damn near a quadrillion. Wow. I mean, it was a lot. There was a lot of money that went into circulation at that time. So it looked like they still had power, but it was an illusion. So since that day, you know, that they ran out, and I think they ran out probably sometime around 2016, 2017. And since that time, the only money, new money, that has come into the banking system was several fundings through to the U.S. government, you know, through Trump, when Trump was in office, and which kept the illusion alive. Of course, they claimed that they had done it. You know, it was them. And then, you know, Trump gained all this popularity because he actually did contracts. You know, he gave operatives contracts. He did all the things. So they trickled that money into the banking system bit by bit by bit every single year until they ran out. Marduk did. And he died in 2016. Therefore, they probably lost access around that time, too. Then all they had was these false closed loops that were part of a connection between Omega and Alpha, until such time that the joint AIQS, which we also reported on about a year ago, agreement expired. So then it was no longer dollar for dollar, and there was no more closed loops that appeared based on stuff that I would do on our end of it. So now it's been just a few things here and there. Now, until we did the quantum flip. Once we did that quantum flip that I had explained to you, then you could now see shadows. So it's kind of like if you're standing outside on a cloudy day and you see a shadow across your feet. You see something black moving across your feet. Well, there's nothing actually there, but you can tell that there's probably a cloud in the sky. And then you go look for the cloud in the sky and you say, oh, there it is. Mm-hmm. Now it looks puffy. It looks like it'd make a comfy bed. You know, you could take a nap on it, but it's not real. It's just condensation. If you went to step on it, you would fall right through and slam into the earth. Right. And this is the illusion that they've been seeing now since the quantum flip time. So they see a cloud in the sky and they try to grab it. They think it's money. It's not money. It's not real. It's not really puffy cotton. It's not cash. So we've been working on, part of the cleanup is making sure that all of those things dissipate, you know, in order to fully integrate the system. Now, they cause no harm except for the fact that there's an illusion there that they can actually access something.
Right.
So I told you, I believe I did, tell you early in the week about the fake servers, the fake cache servers. Did I explain that to you again? No, maybe I didn't.
I don't know.
Lots
It's not ringing a
happened.
bell. Yeah.
This was last Friday that this happened,
Okay.
Friday night, late. So I might not have mentioned it in Monday's news.
Okay.
So Friday night, late, they had taken old account numbers and old that used to exist in the off-ledger system at banks. This was part of the old Omega banking system. And they put fake servers in every single bank they could think of, from HSBC to Citibank to JP Morgan to the Treasury Department. And it gave the illusion that these banks had a lot of liquidity.
Okay.
So then they filed an offline agreement with all of the banks that the Treasury Department now had custody instead of the Federal Reserve of said banks, which gave the illusion that there was a lot of money at the Treasury Department.
Okay.
Remember when I told you that if you have a bank account, basically worldwide, you don't actually have money in your account. You have what's called a credit. The money never actually leaves the Federal Reserve. It stays in there for every country on earth and for every bank on earth. Okay? We are moving away from a credit-based system to an asset-based system where you, the human being, actually receives the cash, the M1 money in your account. That is the difference between what the alpha harmonic genesis system is doing versus the old omega system. So you never really had any cash. Well, these people had a bright idea. They could recreate the Federal Reserve System, but under the control of the treasuries of the world. Then they could see at the World Bank, there was a puffy cloud. Okay? Something floating over the World Bank that looked like it was in the name of the World Bank. So if you could do cloud writing, it would say World Bank and it would say bazillion dollars, whatever, lots of zeros, big account. And so they could see it writing in the sky with a shadow on your feet or in the harmonic genesis system. Mm-hmm. So Rothschild perpetuated a scam to remain relevant to Umbrella Military Corporation, to the Orsini family, and to a number of different families around the world. And I dropped that name on purpose. And the 5 families we talked about and all of these things, that they would be able to then issue one big treasury note against all of the treasury's assets, which were all of the banks in the world, with their fake servers and fake money, like no one would know the difference. And then they were going to deposit said bond into the fake fluffy cloud, World Bank, and then all the liquidity and money would come out. The real money would come out. Now, number one, this was not real money. Yeah. It has no allocation numbers. It was digits floating in the sky. That's what you were seeing. It was never real. But Rothschild portrayed to the world at the United Nations meeting that this was real. They made deals. You see them shaking hands, how much money all the countries were getting from the World Bank. Go through and watch it. You can see how many countries made deals with the World Bank and everything is wonderful and all the operatives were happy and all of these types of things. So Friday night comes along. There's no cloud. They go to touch it and it dissipates. And then everybody is in a full-on panic and all the servers went away. They all crashed all at the same time. I don't know how these things happen. They just do. But it's not real. They weren't actually in the banking system. They were kind of on the side, so to speak, okay, with big digits on there just to prop up a balance sheet. Kind of like something that Trump got indicted for recently. I think it was yesterday. He was indicted actually for propping up his balance sheet in order to build his real estate business. So he gave false balance sheets to banks everywhere saying that he had billions of dollars when really he didn't. False assets, false this. So the Treasury Department apparently thought that was a good idea in cooperation with the Umbrella Military Corporation and a bunch of operatives, NSA, a lot of people. So that all fell apart on Friday night. I mean, it was a fiasco. So they had to try to make a quick recovery. There are also other fluffy clouds that we've been getting rid of. All kinds of, alleged closed loops with big money in it, fake money, not real money with real allocations. And, Rothschilds is telling everybody they have the access codes to all of these accounts, which is a lie. But it was enough to cause a lot of problems. So number one, the United States is moving troops all over the Middle East right now because they believe that they will have this money by Friday. Operatives are moving into locations like Durango, Colorado, and Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and other various zones, Reno, Nevada, thinking that they are also going to get paid money. And that bubble burst this morning. And the reason why it burst is because the Rothschilds know that those aren't real, and they do not have any valid access codes. So they make up an access code, gave it to all the banks, and told them that they could actually use them on Friday. Harvest Moon time. That was also a lie, and they actually know it was a lie. They promised money to Saudi Arabia. They promised money to Iraq, to Iran, to Russia, to China, to all the countries in the world. This was a global, worldwide, world war scam.
And it actually gets worse than that because the Rothschilds had a backup plan in case their whole Harvest Moon thing didn't work out and, they didn't regain complete access to the financial system. Their backup plan was to throw Kim under the bus and to basically blame it on her and have everyone get mad at her. And, if she didn't provide the money then for the Rothschilds, then a lot of bad things could happen. So that was kind of their overall plan. Obviously, the plan has been foiled, and too bad, so sad for the Rothschilds. And then Kim goes into more detail about why things are not going to run the way they used to run. So I think it's important to kind of play this clip, and then Kim gets very, I won't say excited, that's not the right word. She's frustrated, right? As we all are. We just want to move on with the restoration plan. And she definitely has some mic drop moments in today's news. So I'll play that as well.
Number one, we are under new management. New management would be me. Marduk is gone. Like gone from the universe. Gone from the multiverse. Gone. Gone, 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 gone. Number two, the world has changed in so many ways. And you can go back for the last 6 months, a year in news broadcasts and rewatch and re-listen because you'll understand how many things have changed in just a short period of time. Expired agreements, the GOLD declaration we talked about at the end of January. The world is a changing place. Number three, if they ever ignored, let's go back to days of old when Marduk was in charge and here and alive and giving them orders and instructions, and then on down to the covens down to the parents, then the covens and coven masters, family masters, and then down eventually on the low end of the totem pole, the Rothschild family, Etal. Okay, if they did not follow an order to a T, they would be dead. He would kill them all. Okay? So, if these people actually worked with me or for me, which is what we're supposed to do, then if they didn't follow an order, See, those contracts that they're giving out to operatives and all this stuff that they plan to do on Friday in 2 days' time, that's not my orders. I don't even know anything about what's even in them. I can only speculate based on chatter that I'm hearing through the intelligence system, and phone conversations that are being had, and billions of dollars in arms for World War III. My orders are not World War III. So I'm sorry, but that's all baloney. And it's important to say it on the news. This is very important information to get out because this does affect you. Am I going to participate in this? Absolutely not. I had that scam already played on me. I alerted all of the people that were unknowingly technically involved. And now I'm alerting all of you. Then I had to prove to these people that it hadn't been Rothschild since 2012. It was me. The market crashed, remember, by 2008 because there was no money coming into the system. The economy was faltering. Remember back to 2008, what happened during the Obama administration here in the States and whoever respectively worldwide. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until 2012 that we started recovering from this. And now you know. It always was me. So if you're from a government, an agency, an operative, or whoever you are watching this, it always was me. Since that time, it always was me. Now, I will never do that again. And you can send anybody you want here to threaten my life. But that's never happening. Period. End of story. So when I tell you they don't have the money for a pandemic, this was the scam they came up with. Next, Umbrella Military Corporation. Umbrella Military Corporation was very upset they are not going to get their let's kill everybody EBS, emergency broadcast system crap. Mm-hmm. They convinced the United States Navy to give them protection because they were scared of the Rothschilds because they didn't complete their Rothschild contract. Wow. So remember, everybody's fighting the Khazarian mafia, they think. So they offered them protection. 8 stories down under Fort Bragg in North Carolina, United States. But that wasn't the story. Again, these people lie to each other. They stab each other in the back. You know, trying to do business with governments is like literally, I mean, you're doing business with a bunch of people that lie to each other and stab each other constantly. So all they really wanted was passage down to that facility. Because why? Because they thought they could fire up some old frequency machines that were left there by the others when they worked together. And they had every intention of connecting this to the FEMA emergency broadcast system test that you can find on the internet that's supposed to be on October 4th at 2:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then they were trying to connect all of the states, just in the United States, systems, emergency broadcast systems all together to send you some nasty frequencies with some nasty disease through your cell phones and electronics. Now, that facility no longer exists, and neither do any of the Umbrella Military Corporation people that were in that facility. And if anybody else wants to try it, go right ahead. I guarantee you, you won't survive 24 hours. We are not on that program. We are not. I'm sorry. I'm very angry this morning. I have anger issues today. So I am not playing with you people anymore. You know, if we've got to kill 400 million people, 500 million people to get rid of you and all your damn bloodlines, we'll do it. So don't test me and don't play. You were scared out of your wits, all of you family people, all of you, from the person that sat in my chair before, and you should still be freaking scared.
And there you go, guys. There's the mic drop moment. It was interesting because after the newscast, I hopped on Telegram and was checking out people's comments. And a lot of people thanked Kim for getting to that level of frustration on the news, because you can definitely hear it in her voice. But sometimes you just want people to express how you're feeling on the inside, right? And so many of us are just like, restoration, we want restoration. Come on. We want the bad guys to go away, and we want to move forward. We want to create the world that, that we always should have had, and we just forgot who we were, and we're ready. We're ready to move on. So it'll be interesting to see, obviously, what happens here in the U.S. If you were to watch mainstream media, they're talking about a possible government shutdown simply because Congress can't agree on blah, 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 blah. It's such a lie. I mean, yes, government shutdown like forever, but not because Congress can't agree on stuff. So that's the narrative. We'll see what happens beyond Friday, but you can tell they're running scared. They're running scared. And they think threatening Kim and, trying to get her out of the picture. Obviously, they know that she's not going to work with them. So there you go. There is the World Situation Report. And, the big question is, what do you do now? What do you do with this information? A lot of it may be brand new for those who may not listen to our newscast on a regular basis. First of all, I would encourage you guys to send this to somebody that you care about. Let them know what's going on. This is how change really happens. This is how people start to see that, wow, the world isn't really what I thought it was. They need to hear this type of information. And as for you, keep asking questions. Keep thinking critically, because that's how we prevent this from happening again. And we have to start thinking about restoration too, and what we want this new world to look like. If governments go under, what are you going to do to be the solution? Who can you help? How can you help your community get through this next stage? We've never been through this before. Now's not the time to be scared, but it is a time to be aware and ready to take action in whatever thing you can do, whatever that means for you. So if you want more information, not only about our newscast, but we put out other great shows, you can check us out, unitednetwork.tv. And you can also connect with us on Telegram. We're not really on social media. We get banned and censored and shadow banned and all that fun stuff. So we're pretty much just on Telegram for communicating with our audience, with people like you. There are 3 different links in the description for today's episode I'd love for you to check out. First is the CARE General Updates channel, which is the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth. So a lot of restoration information, different notices. Sometimes Kim will, put out late-breaking information or something that she wants to clarify, but our health and wellness videos are posted there. We give people a heads up when the news comes out. There is a free version of the news for a couple hours a day if you aren't able to afford a subscription or a membership. So that's the CARE General Updates channel. We also have United Network News channel, which posts our episodes for our newscasts, as well as our in-depth Field Messenger reports. So we have a shorter version for the Field Messenger reports that appears on the news, but then there may be a longer version. So all the longer version stuff, that all goes out, and the direct links that you don't even need a subscription with. All the links are on the United Network News channel. And then finally, if you are interested in becoming a Field Messenger and contributing to this beautiful new world that we're creating, you can do so. And that group is UNN Field Messenger Group. Again, all the links are below. This is The Rundown, and I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.